Welcome to the Podcast Lab, your go-to space for raw conversations, curious questions, and inspiring stories from around the world. Whether you're here to learn, laugh, or just listen in, this is where ideas take shape and voices come alive. Ready to dive into fresh perspectives and thought-provoking discussions? Let's get started. This is the Podcast Lab. Subscribe now and never miss an episode.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive with us.
Always exciting to be back.
We're tackling something I think everybody wants to get better at, building stronger relationships.
That's a huge one.
The key we're focusing on today is love languages.
Oh, yeah. Those are fascinating.
Have you ever heard of them?
Absolutely.
We have this really great podcast script that just dives right into love languages. And I thought this deep dive could help us all figure out how to put these love languages into practice.
Yeah, because sometimes you take the quiz, okay, what's next?
Exactly. And maybe we can even figure out our own love languages along the way.
Ooh, I love that. Love that.
So, okay, first of all, what are they? What are love languages? This is for people who haven't heard this term before.
Okay, so the basic idea is that we all experience love in different ways.
Right.
And there are these sort of 5 categories of how we give and receive love.
5 categories. Okay, so, and this is important because if you're expressing love to someone in a way that they don't receive it, then it's like you're speaking a different language.
It's like talking to a brick wall.
You're not getting through to them.
Exactly. You're both there, but you're not actually connecting.
Right. Even if your intentions are good.
Exactly.
And then you end up feeling unappreciated or misunderstood, and they're probably feeling the same way.
Exactly. And resentment builds.
Yeah?
Yeah. And it's just like, why are we even doing this?
Yeah.
You know?
So let's actually get into those 5 categories. So I'm looking at the script, and it says words of affirmation.
Okay, so that's all about expressing affection through words.
Like compliments and praise?
Yeah, like telling someone, hey, I really appreciate you, or you look great today.
Those kind of things.
Yes, and really meaning it.
Right.
You know, like...
You can't just be throwing out empty words.
Exactly. That's just manipulation.
Right. It has to be authentic.
Yes, it has to come from the heart.
Okay. So what's the next one?
Okay, the next one is acts of service.
Oh, I like this one.
Yeah, me too.
I love acts of service. So what is that exactly?
So it's all about doing things for the other person to show them that you care.
So like doing the dishes.
Yeah, like doing the dishes, taking out the trash.
Making dinner.
Making dinner.
Yeah. Mowing the lawn, like all that kind of stuff.
All that kind of stuff, yeah. Like helping them with something that they need help with.
Right. So if that's your love language, then that's how you express love.
That's how you feel loved.
And how you feel loved.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. What's the next one?
Okay, next one is receiving gifts.
Oh, receiving gifts.
Yes.
Now, this one is interesting because it kind of gets a bad rap, I feel like.
Yeah, because people think it's just about, like, being materialistic.
Right.
But it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about the thoughtfulness behind the gift.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be expensive or anything.
It's like a symbol that you were thinking of them.
Exactly.
Right, and you went out of your way to get them something that they might like or that would be useful to them. Or
yeah, or like you saw this thing and it reminded you of them and you just had to get it for them.
Right, exactly. So it's the thought that counts.
Exactly, the thoughtfulness behind it.
Okay, what else do we got?
Okay, so we got quality time.
Quality time, okay.
Yeah, so that's about being present with the other person.
Oh.
Giving them your undivided attention.
Okay, so it's not just like...
Not just being in the same room.
Right.
But actually like engaging with them.
Yeah.
Having meaningful conversations, doing things together.
So like putting your phone away.
Yes,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Turning off the TV.
No distractions.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. So that's quality time. I think a lot of people would say that's their love language.
Probably.
Okay. What about the 5th one?
Okay, the 5th one is physical touch.
Ooh, physical touch.
So this is about expressing affection through physical closeness.
Okay.
So like holding hands, cuddling, hugging,
All right.
kissing,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
So it's not just about intimacy. It's about that physical connection.
Exactly. It's about feeling close to the other person
Right.
and feeling that sense of warmth and security.
Okay, so now that we know what they are, the 5 categories, what happens when 2 people in a relationship have different love languages? Like, what if I am really big on acts of service, but my partner is all about quality time?
Yeah, and you're like, I just cleaned the whole kitchen for you. Why aren't you happy?
And they're like, well, you haven't talked to me all day.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do we do in those situations?
Well, there are a couple of examples in here that we can look at.
Okay, let's dive into those.
Okay, let's talk about Sarah and Mike.
Sarah and Mike. Okay.
So Sarah's primary love language was quality time,
Okay.
and Mike's was acts of service.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, so she's craving that focused one-on-one time with him.
Right.
And he's like busy doing all these things around the house to show her that he loves her.
And she's like, but you're never here.
Yeah. And he's like, but look at this clean house. Look at all these chores I did.
Right. I mowed the lawn.
Exactly. And she's feeling neglected and he's feeling unappreciated.
Ooh, that's a tough spot to be in. So how did they figure this out?
Well, I guess luckily for them, they came across this concept of love languages.
So that's what can be so transformative about this.
Absolutely.
Right. Like once you realize
So you have that aha moment.
the light bulb goes off.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's what's been going on.
Exactly. Like, this is why we're not connecting.
Okay, so what happened next? Did they change completely as people?
That's what I want to know. We're going to find out in part 2.
Right, stay tuned for part 2, everybody. So last time, we were talking about Sarah and Mike's doing all this stuff, like around the house, thinking he's showing love.
Right, speaking his language.
But it wasn't Sarah's language.
Exactly.
So they figure this out about love languages. What happens next?
Well, they realize that they need to start speaking each other's love languages, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like they have to become different people. It's just they have to make a little bit more of an effort.
Okay, so how does that work?
Yeah.
Like specifically, what did they do?
Okay, so Mike, he starts setting aside specific time to just hang out with Sarah.
Oh.
With no distractions.
Quality time.
Exactly. Putting his phone away, turning off the TV, and just like really being present with her.
Did Sarah have to change too? Like, did she start doing acts of service for him?
Well, she started doing something that was really important.
What's that?
She started acknowledging all the things that Mike was already doing for her.
Oh, okay.
So she started like really expressing gratitude for the things that he was doing around the house, which is his love language.
Oh, so they both had to kind of like meet in the middle a little bit.
Exactly. It's about compromise. It's about understanding what the other person needs.
And, making that effort. So did it work? Were they happy?
They were so much happier.
Oh.
Yeah, because she felt loved and cherished because he was making that effort to connect with her in a way that she understood.
And he was probably feeling really appreciated because she was actually acknowledging all this stuff he was doing.
Exactly. And it just made their relationship so much stronger.
So it really is like, if you figure this love language thing out,
It can be life-changing.
it can really make a difference.
Yeah. The Gottman Institute.
The what?
It's this place that does all this research on relationships.
Okay.
And they found that, couples who are aligned with their love languages, they have a much higher chance of like staying together for the long haul.
So it's not just touchy-feely stuff. It actually is backed up
It's science.
by research.
Yes.
Okay, so how do we figure out what our love languages are?
So the script gives us a few tips here. So the first one is to think about how you most naturally express love to others.
Okay.
Like, what do you find yourself doing without even thinking about it?
Yeah.
Are you always offering to help people? Do you like to give gifts? Are you a hugger?
Right. So basically, look at yourself first and how you're acting.
Exactly. Look for those patterns in your own behavior.
Okay. What else?
Another tip is to just ask. Ask your partner, your friends, your family.
You could just ask them.
Yeah. Just say, like, hey, how do you feel most loved?
Like, just come out and say it.
Yeah. Just have an open conversation about it.
That makes sense.
But when you're having that conversation, really listen to what they're saying.
Okay.
Pay attention to their body language, their tone of voice.
Right. Because sometimes people might say one thing,
Right.
but their body language is saying something completely different.
Exactly. And then there's also this fun little experiment that you can try.
Okay. An experiment. Tell me more.
So try expressing love in all 5 love languages over like a week or 2.
Okay.
So like one day, focus on words of affirmation.
Okay.
The next day, do some acts of service for them. The next day, give them a little gift.
Ooh, fun.
The next day, plan a special date night or activity where you can just spend quality time together. And then don't forget physical touch, like give them a hug or hold their hand.
So you're basically trying out all the different love languages and seeing which one sticks.
Exactly. And pay attention to their reaction.
Okay.
See what lights them up, what makes them feel really seen and appreciated.
Right. So if you're like doing all these acts of service and they're not even noticing,
Maybe that's not their thing.
that's not their language.
Exactly. But if you give them a hug and they just melt,
Okay.
maybe that's their love language.
I get it. I get it.
So you're like a detective.
A love detective.
Exactly. Trying to figure out.
Crack the code.
Yes, exactly.
What if our languages are like polar opposites. What do we do then?
That's a great question, and I think we need to keep going to find that out.
All right, so we're going to find that out in part 3. Everybody stay tuned. Okay, so we've figured out the love languages. We've done a little experiment. We're like love detectives. But what if my love language and my partner's are totally different? Like, what do we do?
So it's not about, like, completely changing who you are.
Right.
It's more about just being mindful of the other person's needs
Okay.
and making an effort.
So, like, even if it feels a little weird at first.
Yeah. Like, if you're not used to giving gifts,
Right.
and that's your partner's love language,
Right.
you might have to, like, step outside your comfort zone.
So it's like learning a new language.
Exactly.
Like, you're not going to be fluent right away.
Exactly. It takes practice, but it's so worth it.
Because then you can actually communicate.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can actually express your love in a way that they understand.
And they feel it. Yeah. You know, there's that example in the script about Lisa and Tom.
Lisa and Tom, yeah.
Her love language was words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And his was physical touch.
Okay, so completely opposite.
Yeah. So he was always like hugging her and kissing her and holding her hand.
Right, thinking that was showing love.
Exactly. And she was like, yeah, that's nice, but like, can you also just tell me that you appreciate me?
Right. So what did they do?
Well, they learned to like incorporate both languages. Yeah. So he would still give her hugs and kisses, but he would also make an effort to like compliment her more often. Tell her how much he appreciated her. Tell her she looked beautiful. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah. And she would still cuddle up with him on the couch, but she would also write him little love notes or leave him a voice message telling him how much she loved him.
Oh, I like that.
It's about finding that balance, you know?
Yeah.
Making sure you're speaking both your own language and your partner's language.
I like that. So it's about making that effort.
Exactly.
To do those little things.
Even if it's not your natural inclination.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Even if it feels a little awkward at first.
But the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
And you know what I was thinking? This isn't just for romantic relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like, you could use this with your friends, with your family, even at work.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like with your kids.
Yeah, if you know that your kid's love language is quality time, make sure you're setting aside time to just hang out with them, play with them, do things together. If your friend's love language is gifts, put a little more thought into their birthday present this year.
Right, right. It makes so much sense.
It really does.
It's like, why didn't I think of this before?
I know, right?
Okay, so to wrap this all up.
Yes.
What's the one thing, like the most important thing, that we should all remember about love languages?
The most important thing to remember is that when you learn someone's love language, you're giving a gift to both them and yourself. You're deepening the connection and creating more intimacy.
Dude, like you said, you're speaking the same language.
Exactly. And that's what love is all about, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I think we all learned a lot today.
It was my pleasure.
And we will see you next time for another fascinating exploration.